Okay, so who is on our panel today? We have Jay Rosenzweig, CEO of Rosenzweig and Company. Makes sense, okay. Garrick Tiplady, the managing director of Facebook and Instagram in Canada. Zaid Sheikh, Consul General of Canada in Los Angeles. David Patchell Evans, and in parentheses, Patch, because, that's his street name. CEO and founder of Good Life Fitness. And finally, Paul Damaris III, who is, he's a lot of things, but let's just say he's a venture capitalist to save me some time. Okay, so several different people, all representing several different businesses and industries. Just what I like to see, because I am pro-diversity, after all. Now, I wonder what we're going to learn about today.
Thank you, and welcome to the all-men's panel.
Yeah, I have been told that having such a thing occur is a cardinal sin these days. I wonder why this group would take such a sexist and patriarchal risk by participating.
I always say beyond the imperative, the moral imperative of equality and ensuring everyone has their fair shake in terms of pursuing whatever ambitions they have, that there's a very strong business case to be had for diversity in business and around the boardroom table in order to really galvanize creativity and amazing results. Study after study has shown that.
Really? Study after study has shown that diversity leads to creativity? Study after study makes the business case for diversity simply on the basis of diversity? Would you care to name any of those studies?
But in both of these complementary contexts, it gives me really great pleasure to moderate this esteemed panel of absolutely amazing humans and...
Amazing humans. That sounded awkward, even if technically correct. I wonder if he was afraid of assuming anyone's gender, even though he already told us it is a all-male panel.
I'm going to turn it over to each and every one of them to give a brief intro and also describe why, for them, championing this issue of the advancement of women in business and in tech is so important to them.
Well, I assume it's because, as we all know, women need men to champion for them because women cannot succeed on their own without the help of men. Do I assume correctly that we're about to enter the benevolent sexism zone?
So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Garrick.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Garrick Tiplady. I run Facebook and Instagram here in Canada. And I just have to say, so first of all, Jody, who I know is in the front, thank you for having this panel. I think it's important we talk about this. I'm a champion of this movement. I think it's fantastic, so thank you.
Oh, branding yourself a champion. Now, shouldn't that designation be left up to the women to bestow upon you, you presumptuous patriarch?
And to your point on gender equality and inclusion, honestly, I just think you have to look at the Canadian population. Over 50% of the population is women.
Over 50% of the population is women? You don't say. Also, that makes women the majority rather than a minority. I have no idea why I feel the need to point that out.
Over 25% of the population identify as visible minorities.
Identify as visible minorities. If they are visibly minorities, isn't the act of identifying as such kinda redundant? I'm confused.
It is up to us to make sure we champion inclusion because we would be fools not to.
And that's his intro. So his argument is one of intelligence. To do other than he suggests would just be dumb. Got it.
Awesome. Hi there, everybody. My name is Zabe Sheikh. I'm Canada's Consul General to Los Angeles, Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona. And a big shout out to everyone here. And of course, Jody and the Move the Dial team, because this is an integral conversation. We're so lucky to have it in one of the greatest cities in the world. And thanks for letting me be on this mantle, as we said, backstage.
Yes, the mantle. The panel with just men on it. It needs a special, somewhat exclusionary, dismissive, derogatory name. Because, well, you know, they're only men. Only men who women need to champion for them.
Normally, I say I'm going to be off the mantle, but to this group, I think we really want to talk about something from our government. Says none of us can move forward if half of us are held back. And I think that's an important way to look at it.
So Canada has been actively holding women back? That sounds a little bit illegal. But then this speaker is with the Canadian government, so I guess he would know better than the rest of us.
Why is it important? Because of that very nature, that we are nowhere if we're holding people back. And currently, in spite of amazing moments like this, we still are. And it's because of amazing moments like this that hopefully we will get over that hump. And Canada is committed to that. And hopefully we'll do it together.
So disagreement is stupid, and Canada is sexist. Got it.
Paul Desmarais, I'm the chairman and CEO of Cigar Holdings. We're an investment organization. I'm the co-founder and chairman of Portage, a venture fund, and Diagram, a startup studio. I'm also the chairman of Wealthsimple. Ultimately, our organization is an investment organization. To succeed in that space, we need talent and a diversity of opinions.
Talent and a diversity of opinions. Wow, that sounds actually reasonable. I'm very glad to hear it.
Ultimately, by having a diverse workforce and diverse team, we're able to draw from a much deeper pool of talent and then have people that are able to bring us different perspectives and different angles and avoid groupthink. And so all of that makes for diversity as a really important factor in our competitive advantage.
He never mentioned gender. So, is he a heretic? Or is he just waiting for his moment to prove to us the depth of his true faith? Well, spoiler alert, he gets there in a big way eventually.
I'm Dave Patch Levins. Everyone calls me Patch.
Well, I'm going to call you David. You know, to have some diversity of thought.
I'm the CEO of Good Life Fitness, Fit for Less, Econo Fitness, CanFit Pro, and Oxygen Fitness. And those companies are all run by women.
And the fact that they are women is incidental, correct? I mean, if they were men with the exact same skills and qualifications, they would be the ones running those companies, wouldn't they? Or are you pointing out that single fact about each of them to virtue signal, while at the same time diminishing anything else about what commends them to those roles? I mean, you wouldn't be doing that, would you, David?
And our board is, our senior executive team is heavily weighted towards women. And I really think that's why we're so successful. Actually, I don't think I know. That's why we're so successful.
You know you're so successful because they are women. Just because they are women. And for no other reason. And so, why aren't you stepping down and giving your job to a woman? I mean, that would make the group of companies even more successful, wouldn't it? I'm surprised your investors are not demanding such a move. That is, if you actually believe what you are saying is true.
And they provide the level of professionalism with the level of empathy that is required to make people feel that we can trust them with their health and their fitness and their well-being. And that's our purpose.
So, questioning diversity is dumb, Canada is sexist, and men inherently lack professionalism and empathy. Got it.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Maybe I'll start with Zabe for my first question. Tell us about a time, Zabe, that you witnessed or learned of a situation where you would have wanted to do more for a woman in the workplace. What did you learn from that, and how has this changed the way you offer support as an ally?
Yes, tell us of a time before you were an ally when you actively gave women the opportunity to make their own way and stand up for themselves. Confess to us this great sin.
Deep cuts. Well, I'm from the media and entertainment world, and I started in the theater world, so let me assure you, the Time's Up and Me Too movements, I have unfortunately seen in full effect.
You've unfortunately seen them in full effect? So you disagree with Time's Up and Me Too? Or were you subject to their collateral witch hunting? I'm confused.
And I'm embarrassed to say that, likely because of my inaction in moments, I probably was, not probably, was, a co-conspirator because of my silence or because of my confusion.
So you witnessed bad things happening and did nothing about them? And only in hindsight, after worldwide shaming campaigns, do you see the error of your ways? Got it.
I can remember first time in theater school where a male visiting prof, through rehearsal, sure, we were talking about the scene, and it's a deep scene, and things are happening, and things are getting volatile in the scene, but the male director decided to single out one of the lead actors and to, I guess, provoke her into a moment to get really connected, like just out of the blue, just threw water right into her face.
Splashed with water in theater school. So the professor was one of those method acting type teachers. Yeah, a splash of water. That's really right up there with sexual harassment or sexual assault. Now, did he only ever do such things to females? Did he never try and provoke an emotional response in male actors using tricks and triggers? I'm just curious. Because if that is your premier example of Time's Up or Me Too material from your life, I'm sorry, but you're really stretching to make yourself a part of that story.
And it resonates still because in that moment it was awkward and weird. And then as you go through your life and start becoming a better person, hopefully, a better man, you realize how horrific that was. And maybe if you'd done that, stopped it there or countered it or called it out, that could have been your moment to actually grow faster, sooner, wiser. And I didn't, so it took me a longer time.
Yes, if only you had stepped in front of that splash of water and taken its terrible toll upon yourself and saved that poor girl from, I don't know, learning something about acting or rescuing her from having to stand up for herself, I guess.
But I'm proud to say that I did realize from that, and that's always, and that person eventually actually got to got called out for it. Not that moment, but because unchecked, went on to do some other things, and now they are no longer in the industry, thankfully.
Like what? What warning sign was that splash of water? What other, presumably more horrific things did this person go on to do that you could have prevented? I am very, very curious to know the depths of your complicity.
Thank you. Patch, as someone who's grown and risen through the ranks of the corporate world and the business world, what have some of your learnings been, and how could you, looking back, be as good an ally as you possibly can for women in the workplace?
Well, based on his statements, I still think his best move is to quit and cede his job to a woman. But let's see what his real answer is.
When I see people look at people based on something other than being human, I see two things. One, their mistake and my opportunity. So if you're not going to treat everyone equally, that's okay. There's a lot of talent out there, and I'm going to bring them over to me.
So all of your companies being run by women is just a coincidence? They all just happen to be more qualified than any man in your companies? You treated everyone equally. Got it.
And so I can't force other people to do the things they should do, but I can set an example. So I try to set an example, and I speak out about it when I can. And sometimes it puts you in direct conflict, and I'm getting older, and I just don't care if I'm in conflict. It's like I'm just resigning from a board down in the States where they just won't put women on, so see you later.
So everyone should be treated equally unless it's a woman who then needs to be given special consideration just for being a woman. And I would love to know what board of directors explicitly told you that they would not elect women, because that would be an amazing lawsuit.
And it's not just because it's the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. And it's the caring thing to do.
Men helping women who cannot help themselves because they are women is the moral, smart, and compassionate thing to do. Got it.
And and I always put myself in the shoes of anyone else who isn't put, I'm a big white male. So I have all these advantages. So I try to put myself in someone else's shoes, and how would I want to be treated?
So you would want to be pitied on the basis of your genitals and thought of as functionally defenseless as a result? You would want to be condescended to with a pat on the head and a promotion that you don't necessarily qualify for? Well, hey, if that's your version of the golden rule, more power to you?
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Speaking of leading by example, as leaders within your organizations, what are ways that you've actively supported women on your team? What's one tangible thing that the other allies and champions who are listening today can start doing right now to support the women around them? I'll start with Garrick on this one.
So it's interesting. As I think back on my career, 7 of 8 of my managers have been women.
Wait. 7 of your 8 managers have been women. But I thought women were being held back. I thought the entire process was sexist and aligned against women succeeding. Or do I have to assume that those 7 managers were all put into their jobs because they were women, rather than on the basis of personal merit? Because you see, when you start introducing the idea of achievement by virtue of demographic, you place a proverbial question mark over the head of every individual in that demographic to be questioned on the validity of their appointment. how can you be so oblivious that you are championing pouring poison into your own organization?
And so, first of all, that is fantastic. And what I think it's done is it's given me more appreciation for some of the challenges that women face in the workplace on a day-to-day basis. And honestly, it's the start to actually talking about unconscious bias.
Like the bias of thinking that, wow, you're a manager and a woman? That's amazing! Good for you! You mean that kind of bias?
And at Facebook, we talk a lot about unconscious bias. And the fact is, I think a lot of people, most people, show up to work every single day with positive intent. But we have bias that slips into conversations. We have bias that slips into how we interact with people. And we've got to address it and see it so that we can call it out. And so we've created training courses at Facebook that we expect every employee to take.
Oh, is that the Salem method of rooting out evil by any chance?
We've now made that available online for anyone who is interested, but it's really providing tools to spot, identify, and act on unconscious bias. So that's one thing. I think the other piece, just that we can all do, call out stereotypes when you see them.
Like women need men's help in the workplace because they're women? That kind of stereotype?
Like, just do it. Secondly, interrupt the interrupters. Nobody wants an interrupter in the room. Interrupt the interrupters.
But doesn't that then make you an interrupter? So then, shouldn't you leave the room? I mean, God forbid someone should have to rhetorically stand their ground without you having to jump in to be the white knight.
Champion women within your organization. Encourage women to go for it.
Because women are weak and cowardly. Got it.
And that's really how we try and show up every day. Now, here's my one other piece. How many men in the audience? It's hard to see from here. Can you raise your hands? Okay. So here's my advice for you. Step up and mentor women.
Yes, men. Find a woman in your organization and take a focused interest in them and in their career advancement. Just don't say the wrong thing, or make the wrong move, or do anything that could be interpreted as unconscious bias or as sexist. Because, well, then you just might be times upped or me too'd.
And I got to say this because in discussions with people, and since the era of the Me Too movement, I've had a lot of conversations with men, and there is a fear that they stop interacting and stop mentoring women. And quite honestly, let me put a point in that right now. That is bullshit. Step up, mentor women. It is your job and responsibility.
Well said, well said.
Men being concerned over interacting with women in the Me Too era is bullshit. It is men's responsibility and their job to mentor women. Because no men have ever been wrongly accused in the Me Too era, thereafter either losing their careers or having legal action taken against them based solely on an allegation, and women are incapable of action or advancement without the help of men. Got it.
Paul, what's your perspective?
It's interesting because a lot of your comments resound with me. Early on in my career, a lot of my bosses were women.
Golly, they must have all had a lot of help from men to get to where they were, since they obviously couldn't have gotten there on their own. I mean, that is what I am to assume, isn't it?
And they were all very inspiring. And then I actually moved out of the professional services world and moved into the mining world at first. And all of a sudden, I ended up in an organization where the top 40 were men.
Men were the majority in the mining industry. You don't say.
And there were literally no women. And I'm actually now vice chairman of this mining company and working on changing that.
So you're admitting on stage that you are undertaking an initiative of gender discrimination in your hiring practices. Got it.
But ultimately, when I've looked to build our own organization, we've taken an approach of hiring senior women right off the bat. In investment organizations, only a quarter of investment organizations have women that have check writing ability. Our venture fund, 30% of the partners are women. A private equity fund that we're launching in Paris right now, 50% of the partners will be women. That is very unique in the investment world.
Paris, as in Paris, France? But there's a law in France that requires companies to have a semi-50-50 gender split in senior management. So I hope you're not citing something that is legally required of you as a personal feather in your cap, because that would be just a little disingenuous.
Ultimately, one of the things that I've found is that you have gender biases just naturally when you're building your business, and I think you have to approach diversity with real intentionality. And so I'll give you 3 examples of how that's played out just in the last 24 months. Last June, we organized what we call an ecosystem conference, where we invite our entire network to benefit from the group of people in the ecosystem that we've built. I put together the guest list, sent out the invitation, found that out of 200 guests, I had 180 men. And, quickly realized, wow, this is a little out of balance. And you quickly realize that it's because, your network as a man tends to naturally lean towards men. And so what I did to fix that is I got the lists of all the top women in different industries in Canada, and I invited all of them off of LinkedIn to come, even though I'd never interacted with a lot of them before. And what's surprising is a lot of them actually came.
So you employed gender discrimination on who you invited to your event, even if you did not know them, even if they operated in industries that had nothing to do with your business, but solely because they were women. Got it.
Fantastic.
Other intentionality is that as an organization, you don't realize that some of the things you do are very gender biased. So just next week, I'm organizing a 3-day offsite. The problem with a 3-day offsite is a lot of the women in our organization are caregivers, have families at home. Taking 3 days off from their family to be at an offsite is not really necessarily what they can do and what they could afford to do. And what was interesting is I actually had a woman in our organization take me aside and be, Paul, you do realize that you're asking all these women to take 3 days away from their kids, and that's all fine for you guys who are partners and can afford staff, but for a lot of the women in the organization, they don't have an army that works for them at home.
Yes, because only women are caregivers, only women have concerns about time away from their kids, and only women have to make sacrifices in their home lives for the sake of their jobs. Got it.
And so I thought that intentionality is interesting, and just continuously refining that is key across everything we do.
Just to follow, it speaks to you that you listened to a woman. She gave you advice, you took it. That's key. When you get advice, take it.
But what if it's bad advice? Do you have to follow it anyway because the speaker is a woman? Abandoning your critical thinking skills on the basis of gender bias? Well, that would be a mighty interesting way to live your life, I suppose.
Well, in closing, and on the theme of intentionality, I wanted to go in order and ask each of you really briefly if there's a particular author or speaker or influencer who has been particularly impactful to you as you have become such great allies in really the fight for equality and giving everyone their fair shake, as I talked about earlier.
Yes, giving everyone their fair shake, so long as they have the correct genitalia. And anyone with the incorrect genitalia, well, Are you an ally or are you an enemy? Anyway, the closing few minutes of the presentation involve our various speakers complimenting and, dare I say, sucking up to the woman who I assume organized the event at which they are speaking, so I'm just going to end this here. Now, to clarify myself, through the swamp of sarcastic cynicism I have laid out before you, I don't want it thought that men or women, either in work or in life in general, should not help out or encourage others to succeed. That is not at all my message. However, if you are looking upon someone as needing help because of what they are and not who they are, if you look upon a woman and see a helpless person, or look upon a man and see a potential predator, and you act accordingly, the fault lies with you, not in the other person's gender. And once again, I am mightily entertained by the proud confessions of gender discrimination taking place in so many companies and institutions. How we've reached a point where openly declaring your sexism and condescension towards others receives urgent and enthusiastic applause, I'll never quite understand. Yes, we truly are living in a stunning and brave new world. As always, thank you for watching.